There is a version of your life that is still asleep. Not the one lying in bed right now, but the one who never learns what you are capable of, because the alarm goes off and you turn it off instead of standing up. Somewhere between the ringing and the snooze button, a decision gets made that decides more than your morning. It decides who you become. Most people never notice this moment. It happens too fast, too quietly in the dark, before the mind has had a chance to argue. Tonight, before you sleep, I want you to understand something uncomfortable. The version of you that keeps hitting snooze is not resting. That version is hiding from a stillness so quiet it starts to feel like truth. And the truth is simple: 21 mornings. That is all it takes to prove to yourself that you are not who you thought you were, that you are steadier, stronger, and far less fragile than the voice that begs you to stay under the covers. This is not about discipline for its own sake. It is about what discipline reveals. Stay with me tonight and let this settle into you before the sun comes up. There is an old law that has quietly shaped every person who has ever built something lasting. The law of self-mastery, the simple and unglamorous truth that the mind, left alone, will always choose comfort over growth, and that the people who rise above the ordinary are not the ones with more talent or more luck, but the ones who train themselves to act in spite of how they feel. Self-discipline is not a personality trait some are born with and others are not. It is a muscle built the same way every muscle is built, through small, repeated acts of resistance against an easier option. Waking before the world wakes is one of the purest forms of this practice because there is no audience, no reward, no one clapping. It is you alone, choosing to stand up when every soft signal in your body says to stay down. This is precisely why it works. The value is not in the early hour itself. 5 o'clock has no special magic. The value is in what happens inside you the moment you override the pull toward comfort and act instead on decision. Do this once and it means little. Do it every day for 3 weeks, and something shifts underneath the surface. The subconscious mind begins to accept a new instruction, that you are someone who follows through, that your word to yourself is not decoration but structure. Over time, this quiet proof becomes the foundation beneath every larger act of discipline in your life. The harder conversation you finally have, the habit you finally break, the work you finally finish. It begins in the smallest, darkest hour of the day, because that is where no one is watching, and where the truth of who you are gets to speak without an audience. Let's be honest about what this actually feels like, because the polished version of self-discipline you see online is not the real one. The real one is heavier and more human. It is the night before, lying in bed, setting the alarm with a flicker of hope, and then hating the sound of it 11 hours later. It is the internal negotiation in the dark. Just 5 more minutes, just this once. I'll start tomorrow instead. A voice so convincing it can talk you out of a promise you made to yourself only hours earlier. If you have ever felt that pull and given into it, and then felt a small private disappointment settle into your chest for the rest of the day, you already know exactly what this principle is asking of you. That disappointment is not weakness. It is proof that some part of you already knows what you are capable of and is grieving the version of the day you didn't choose. This is the real terrain of self-discipline. Not grand willpower, but 100 small, unglamorous mornings where you either keep a quiet promise or you don't. The good news is that this does not require you to become a different person overnight. It requires only that you begin, and that you begin honestly. So here is where you start. Tonight before sleep, write down one single specific reason you are doing this. Not to be better, which is too vague to hold on to at 5 in the morning, but something concrete. An hour of quiet before the demands of the day begin, a body that feels stronger, a mind that feels less scattered, evidence that you can keep a promise to yourself. Write it in one sentence and keep it somewhere you'll see it the moment the alarm sounds. Second, before you close your eyes, spend 5 slow minutes picturing tomorrow morning exactly as you want it to unfold. Your feet on the floor, the quiet of the house, the small satisfaction of having already won before the day has properly started. This is not wishful thinking. It is rehearsal. The mind performs more easily what it has already imagined performing. Third, each evening for these 21 days, take 90 seconds to review the morning honestly, not to judge yourself, but to notice. Did you rise when the alarm sounded, or did you negotiate? What was the exact thought that almost won? Naming it robs it of some of its power the next time it appears, because you will recognize it as a familiar voice rather than a new argument. I am someone who wakes with purpose, and that purpose grows stronger with every honest morning. Understand that some mornings within these 21 days will not feel triumphant. Some will feel like simply dragging yourself upright out of pure stubbornness, with no inspiration in sight. That is not a failure of the process. That is the process. Growth built this way is not a lightning strike. It is closer to erosion in reverse. a slow accumulation of small, deliberate acts that eventually reshape what feels natural to you. No single morning will transform your life, but 21 mornings, strung together with honesty rather than perfection, will teach your nervous system something that no book or video ever could, that you are the kind of person who does the thing, even when the thing is small, even when no one is watching, even when it would be easier not to. There is a stillness available at that hour that cannot be found later in the day, once the noise of other people's needs and the world's demands has fully arrived. In that early quiet, before the phone begins to hum with messages, and before the mind fills with the day's obligations, there is room to simply be present with yourself and with whatever you understand to be larger than yourself. Call it a higher order, an unseen intelligence, the quiet architecture behind things. Many who have walked a disciplined path describe this early hour as sacred, not because of religious instruction, but because it is the one part of the day untouched by demand. In that stillness, gratitude tends to arrive more easily than it does at noon, when the mind is crowded. A few slow breaths, a moment of thanks for the body that carried you out of bed, a quiet trust that the effort you are making is not wasted even when you cannot yet see its shape. This is not mysticism. It is simply making room once a day for something quieter than ambition. That room, kept sacred and undisturbed for 21 mornings, becomes its own kind of foundation, steadier than any single achievement. I trust the process even on the mornings when I cannot yet see the results. Consider a woman who was told as a small child that she would likely never walk without assistance. She had contracted an illness that weakened one of her legs so severely that for years she wore a metal leg brace, and doctors offered little hope that this would change. Her family did not accept this as final. Every day, without exaggeration or spectacle, her mother massaged the affected leg, and later, as she grew older, she practiced walking without the brace in the quiet, unglamorous privacy of her own home, again and again, long before anyone was watching or cheering. There was no dramatic single moment where she was suddenly cured. There was only repetition, small physical efforts repeated with a discipline that had nothing to do with talent and everything to do with will. By her early teenage years, she was walking without assistance. Within a few more years, she was not merely walking but running competitively, and by her 20s, she had become one of the fastest women in the world, eventually winning multiple Olympic gold medals in track and field. What is remarkable about her story is not the medals. It is the years of quiet, repeated, unrecognized effort that came before them, the unglamorous mornings and afternoons of practice that no camera captured. Her greatness was built the same way any disciplined life is built, not in the visible moment of victory, but in the invisible hours of consistency that made that moment possible. She is remembered for running fast. She should be remembered just as much for the thousands of small, disciplined repetitions that happened long before anyone thought to watch. In many wisdom traditions across the world, there exists a shared and ancient instinct to rise before the sun. Monks in quiet mountain temples, desert hermits of old religious lineages, contemplatives in stone monasteries, across cultures and centuries, seekers of many different faiths independently arrived at the same practice. Greet the day in silence and discipline before the world demands anything of you. None of them believed the early hour itself held special power. They believed that the self, disciplined in small and consistent ways, becomes a clearer vessel for whatever they understood as sacred or true. There is a simple teaching found in some form across many traditions that goes something like this. The one who rises with intention shapes the day. The one who is dragged into the day by noise is shaped by it instead. You do not need to belong to any particular tradition to borrow this wisdom. You only need to recognize that the quiet hour before the world wakes has always been treated, by people across history and belief, as fertile ground, not because it is magical, but because it is undisturbed. I keep my promises to myself, even in the smallest, quietest moments no one else will ever see. For those who find somewhere around the 10th or 11th morning of this practice that they want more structure or more guidance to carry them through the harder stretch ahead, there is more waiting below for anyone ready to go further with this. By the 21st morning, something in you will have quietly changed, even if nothing around you looks different yet. You will not necessarily feel triumphant. You may simply feel, for the first time in a long while, a little steadier, a little less at the mercy of the voice that used to talk you out of your own intentions. This is what self-discipline actually gives a person. Not applause, not certainty, not a finished version of yourself. It gives you evidence. 21 mornings of evidence that when you say you will do something, you can be the kind of person who does it in the dark, alone, without anyone checking. That evidence does not disappear once the 21 days end. It becomes part of how you see yourself, quietly reshaping what you believe you are capable of the next time life asks something difficult of you. I am becoming, morning by morning, the person I always suspected I could be. If you are looking for a place to begin or a way to go deeper into this practice, once the 21 days are behind you, there is more available below for those who want to keep building. So tonight, set the alarm. Not with pressure, not with the weight of needing to transform your entire life by tomorrow, simply with the quiet decision to meet yourself in the dark one more time and see who shows up. You do not need to feel ready. Readiness is not required for discipline, only decision is. Let tomorrow be the first of 21 mornings where you choose yourself before the world has a chance to choose for you. There is a stillness waiting for you at that hour, and a version of you waiting inside that stillness, steadier, quieter, and more capable than you have given yourself credit for. All that is required now is to stand up when the sound begins. Sleep well, the morning is already waiting.